Hi all. Today I'm gonna be doing a 20th century summarized video. Yeah, I'm gonna be summarizing 100 fucking years. I know, it's ridiculous. Oh, it's gonna be kind of fun. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the early 20th century. I'm gonna say the dates, whatever, fuck it. January 1st, 1900 to April 30th, 1933. Yeah, each is going to be a span of 33 and a half years, basically. It's going to be a long one. Get your popcorn, peeps. Okay, so 1900, like early 1900s, we see airplanes get invented, the AC gets invented. What else gets invented? I'm trying to think. Second Boer War is still going on, basically. I think in Europe. I don't remember. Yeah, shit like that. And I'm trying to think. Hurricane Galveston starts off the century. I mean, some people think the century started in 1901. I'd say 1900. Yeah, it starts off in 1900. The Hurricane Galveston wipes out Texas completely, almost. Shit like that. The Boer War ends in 1902. 1905, the first movie theaters invented. 1900s wasn't really that eventful, though, not gonna lie. I'm trying to remember what else happened. The 1900s, yeah, it's completely blank. We get to the 1910s, though, this is where shit starts happening. Crazy shit. So, there's, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory of 1912, the Titanic sinking, and I did a video a few months ago, and I was wrong about the date. It actually sunk on the 15th. But yeah, the Titanic sinks. Trying to remember. World War I starts, of course, because of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which is the main reason why World War I started in the first place. What else happens? Oh yeah, ragtime starts to die out of it. Well, not really. It hasn't transitioned to the jazz age yet, fully. But it's starting to almost do it. What else? The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 or 1918 happens, which really fucks up Germany. And World War I ends also. It was only a span of like 4 years. I mean, actually, that's a long time, never mind. But it wasn't really as deadly as World War II, you know? But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. That's what happened. Now we're gonna head to the 1920s, the jazz age, the roaring 20s, whatever. What happens in the 20s? Let's see. The flapper trend. The Great Depression starts around this time, like around the end of the 20s, because of the stock market crash and all that shit. Very bad time to live in. What else happens in the 20s? I'm trying to remember. Silent movies are still a thing. Who cares about silent movies? Let's be honest. But yeah, that's the gist of it. I mean, the first talking movies invented in 1927. What else happens in the 20s? I'm trying to remember. The Ford trend, where everyone had a Ford. That also happens in the 20s because of Henry Ford and his ahead of time company. Okay. 1930s. Great Depression, World War II, and all that shit. That's pretty much the gist of it. Oh wait. At the end of the early 20th century, Hitler becomes dictator of Germany. Yeah. Mid-20th century, May 1st, 1933 to August 31st, 1966. Now, we're transitioning to the middle of the century. World War II starts because of the Warsaw Pact, or I don't know. I don't remember how it started. Some shit like that. But yeah, the gist of it is World War II starts. I think I forgot to mention the 20s, the beer hole push. I don't remember the exact details, but yeah. What else happens besides that? The Hindenburg disaster, 1937. The Great Depression's at its peak, basically. The dust storms of the 30s, yeah, all that shit. Yeah. Now, 1940s. This was like a really weird era. So, World War II finishes. Germany surrenders. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. Fat Man and Little Boy, if you never watched the movie. Manhattan Project. The Cold War starts around this time. And this is slightly before the space race starts. In 1945, oh yeah, I forgot to say, the New Deal was in the 30s. But 1945, Roosevelt dies. Not Theodore, the other one. But yeah, he dies. I think he's the longest serving president in history, in America at least. Yeah. What else happens? The Jazz Age is still alive, I guess. Silent movies are already dead at this point. They've been dead since the 30s. Radios are still popular. This is before like TV took off and shit. Now, go to the 50s. It was a very rock and rolling time. There was Elvis and all that shit. Cold War, space race. The Berlin Wall, I think, was created a little bit before the 50s. In the 40s, some shit like that. That also happened. In the 50s, let's see what else happens. There was like a lot of nuke tests back in the 50s. The early 50s, to be specific. Trying to remember. Well, oh yeah. Joseph Stalin dies in the 50s. Another key figure in World War II, I guess. I've heard it say Hitler committed suicide in the 40s. But yeah, that also happened. Yeah. What else? In the 50s, it was also still a very, it wasn't a good time, really. There was still hella racism and all that. It was not that good. It wasn't really that good. Well, TV was starting to get popular around this time. With the rise of shows like Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, and all that shit. Black and white was starting to fade a bit. The quality was starting to get more to like, color image. 60s. Ooh, Beatlemania. Cold War ends, I think, around this. No, Cold War is still going. What am I talking about? Beatlemania. The space race is going on. Neil Armstrong lands in the moon. Yeah. What else happens in the 60s? I'm trying to remember. To end off the mid-20th century. Oh wait, Neil Armstrong lands. That's in the late 20th century. Fuck. Okay. Whatever. Yeah, Beatles start forming. That's pretty much all I know about that. Yeah. What else? No, really. The Peace Corps thing with JFK and all those experiments happened around the early 60s. Fidel Castro, I think, becomes dictator of Cuba. I don't remember. I don't know. Yeah, that probably does happen, yeah. Cuban Missile Crisis, yeah, 1962. That happens. Yeah, that happens also. 1966, 67-ish, whatever. Late 20th century. Finally, September 1st, 1966 to December 31st, 1999. Okay, so this is the most interesting part of the century. So, well, space race is still going on. Neil Armstrong lands in the moon. Queen starts to form. What else? Apple gets invented in the 70s and 60s. No, 60s. No, I'm talking about the 70s. Yeah, Apple gets invented. A lot of modern stuff starts happening, I guess. Yeah. Computers are invented. Well, not invented, but they start becoming of use a little bit over typewriters. Yeah, this was a transitioning time, the 70s, disco era, no more jazz and all that shit. The rock and roll, yeah, that's gone already, so far. Not yet, but so far. Now, we get to the 1980s. There were JFK got assassinated around, no, that was before. I forgot to mention that, but yeah. 80s. I don't remember for the 80s. We'll see. Berlin Wall ends, I guess. That's a plus. That was going on from the 40s to about the 80s or 90s. No, 80s, fuck. Michael Jackson is popular around this time, with hits like Thriller, Smooth Criminal, stuff like that. Trying to remember, I think around this time Reagan was president, Gorbachev was president of Germany, I don't remember, some shit like that. Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. Back to the Future, this was a great age, really, for movies and shit like that. Okay, finally we're in the 90s, before the Y2K era. 90s, I guess you can say the early part of it was the Full House era. I hated Full House. The 90s was pretty stable. I kind of wish I was alive at that time, but it was stable. Yeah, and hip-hop becomes very popular around this time, so it starts transitioning from rock and roll to hip-hop. And what else? I'm trying to think. This was the decade before, 9/11. Trying to remember what else. Around the start of the the middle of the decade, I'm trying to think. Oh, I forgot to. Fuck. Whatever. 90s. Well, I guess you can just say it was an interesting time. What else happened in the 90s? The Rwanda genocide unfortunately happened around that time. There were a few original attempts on bombing the World Trade. As mentioned in one of Biggie's songs. Yeah, that happened. Yeah. That's basically the gist of the 90s, I guess. 10 off the 90s. There starts to be a transition from, like, you know, I guess, a more digital age, I guess you can say. Still slightly before social media popped off. But, you know, it's slightly before the Y2K scandal and all that shit. But yeah, that's my 20th century video. It's a span of about like 100 fucking years. Anyways, peace.